Hey, welcome back. You know, that phone in your hands, the chair you're in, even the shirt on your back, it all comes from this one single fundamental human need, the need to put a barrier between ourselves and the big wide world. Today, we're going to dig into the amazing stories of shelter and clothing and see how our endless search for safety and comfort literally built the world we live in today. So, let's start with a quick question. What does your house with its Wi-Fi and comfy couch have in common with a prehistoric cave? At first glance, you'd say absolutely nothing, right? But here's the thing. They are both solutions to the exact same problems. How do we stay warm? How do we stay dry? And how do we stay safe? That's the connection we're going to unravel today. All right, let's rewind the clock. Way back. Before there were cities, before there were towns, our earliest ancestors were out there facing the elements with basically nothing. Their first, most urgent job was just finding a safe spot to sleep. This is the story of how we went from just finding shelter to actually building it. For a huge chunk of human history, we were nomads. That meant life was always on the move, following the seasons, following the herds of animals we needed for food. A home wasn't a street address, it was a temporary thing. A dry cave for a few nights, the space under a big rock, or just a simple camp under the stars. Okay, so what you're looking at here is one of the biggest revolutions in all of human history. For thousands and thousands of years, we were just passive about shelter. We took what we could find. But then we invented tools. First, axes to chop and shape wood, and later, metals to create even stronger tools. And that, right there, was the game changer. It meant we no longer had to just find a home. For the very first time, we could build one. This is the moment we started to reshape the world to fit our needs. And that single breakthrough, the ability to build, put us on the path that leads directly to the world we see all around us today. A world packed with homes of every shape and size you can imagine. But it kind of begs a basic question, why do we even need a home? Well, the answers are just as true today as they were 100,000 years ago. This really gets to the heart of it. The reasons we need a home are the exact same reasons our ancestors looked for caves. A house is our shield. It protects us from the elements, right? The sun, the rain, the cold. It keeps us safe from dangers, whether that's a wild animal or a burglar. And of course, it gives us that essential space for comfort, for rest, and for family. These needs, they are absolutely timeless. Of course, how we build that shield always comes down to two things: what's around us and what technology we have. And you can see that split so clearly here. On one side, you have Kutcha houses. These are built with materials found right there on the ground. Mud, straw, bamboo. They're not meant to last forever. On the other side, you've got Pucca houses, built with manufactured stuff like bricks, cement, and steel. These are permanent, engineered to last for generations. And this is where human ingenuity just gets really cool. When we're faced with extreme climates, we get creative. In the freezing Arctic, the Inuit figured out how to build igloos, using the snow itself as an amazing insulator to keep the inside warm. And in places with heavy monsoons, you'll find houses built up on stilts, lifting the whole home safely above any floodwaters. Each design is a brilliant solution to a specific problem. It's adaptation in action. Okay, so we've talked about the roof over our heads, but that's just our main shelter. We also wear a kind of personal shelter every single day. And that brings us to the story of clothing. And you'll see, it's a very similar story of protection, creativity, and making the most of what you've got.
And you're going to see a pattern here, because just like with houses, the story starts with using whatever nature provided. Early humans used big leaves and animal skins to cover up and stay warm. But then came another one of those huge leaps forward. Just like going from caves to construction, we figured out how to weave.
The magic ingredient for weaving is one simple thing: fiber. A fiber is just a really thin, hair-like thread. You can spin these threads into yarn, and then you weave that yarn into cloth. It's the basic building block of every piece of fabric. In fact, everything you're wearing right now started out as a bunch of these tiny little fibers. Now, these fibers come from two totally different worlds. For pretty much all of human history, we only had natural fibers, stuff we could get from the world around us. We grew cotton for light summer clothes, sheared sheep for warm wool, and even carefully harvested silk from cocoons. But then, pretty recently, a whole new category popped up: synthetic fibers. These are made in factories, engineered from chemicals to have really specific qualities, like being super strong like nylon or waterproof like polyester. So the difference is actually really simple, but it's huge. One type we harvest, the other we invent.
Natural fibers are a gift from the living world, from plants and animals. Synthetic fibers, on the other hand, are products of chemistry, often designed to do things nature can't, to be stronger, lighter, or totally waterproof.
So we've established that shelter, whether it's our house or our clothes, is all about safety and comfort. But let's bring it back to our homes today. Beyond just being a shield, what turns a regular house into a truly healthy place? A place that actually makes our lives better?
Well, here's a pretty simple but powerful blueprint. A healthy home is one that can breathe, right? It lets in sunlight and fresh air. It has simple barriers, like screens on the windows, to keep out bugs that can carry diseases. It's kept clean inside, with covered trash cans, and, this is a big one, the area around it is kept clean too, with no standing water where mosquitoes can breed. See, these aren't luxuries, they're basic, fundamental principles for staying healthy.
All right, so as we start to wrap this up, let's just pull back for a second and look at the big picture. What does this whole story of shelter and clothing really tell us about who we are?
At the end of the day, it all comes down to this. The journey from a cave to a skyscraper, or from an animal skin to a high-tech jacket, they aren't two different stories. They're one single amazing story of human innovation. And it has always been driven by the same two things: our need to be safe and our deep desire to be comfortable.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. We've seen how our solutions have changed over thousands of years. Those basic needs for safety and comfort, they're not going anywhere. But what will our homes and our clothes look like 100 years from now? Or even 1,000? What new challenges will they need to solve? Well, that's the next chapter in this incredible story. Thanks for joining me on this one.